are now on to the little pansy down here. So we'll start with the stem and we're just going to do that in back stitch. So you can go up and down it a couple of times just to fill out the stem. So remember 2 or 3 millimeters away from your first stitch and then back down the whole of the stitch that you're going back to so that you get that continuous line of stitching. So I've outlined that in back stitch, but I've still got a gap in the middle, so I'm going to go back down the middle and just fill in so that I cover all of the fabric. And now we're going to do some satin stitch on these leaves. So when you satin stitch onto leaves, I mean, it's totally up to you, but I like to go diagonally. So I'm going to put in my initial stitches to kind of get my direction, and I'll then go back and fill them in. So I'll do this one stitch first, one leaf first, sorry. And then go back and fill in the gaps as many times as you like to get it as satiny and smooth as you want it. So you might want to spend a bit more time on that. I'm just going to show you how I'm going to do the other leaf. So I'm going to choose this way to go diagonally. And then go back and fill in all the stitches. You could use there's 2 greens we've given you, so you could use a different green for each of the leaves to just give them a bit more, to make them stand out from each other if you wanted. Okay, now we're going to do the flower. So I have got 3 strands of yellow on my needle, and I'm going to stitch the parts of the leaves all separately, parts of the petals separately in satin stitch. So I'm doing this bottom bit first and just doing stitches along the shape. So I've done the bottom bit, and then I'm starting to do this kind of middle surrounding bit, and then this will be a whole different section as well where I'll bring my stitches down like this, and I'm going to do now some burgundy bits on the inside. So I've got 3 strands of burgundy, and I'm going to do these inner bits of the petal. So I'm going to start all my stitches at a similar point and then fan them out. And I think that will make them look the most pansy-like. I love pansies. And I think don't be afraid to just go over and over your stitches to get them as smooth as you can. That's how you're going to create a really lovely look, a very kind of silky, cushioned look. So just keep going over and over your stitches. And And as you do that, they will just look more and more blended and more like one element of stitching rather than looking gappy. I've not done that one very well. The joy is if you do put a stitch somewhere that you don't think it should be, you can just go over it. And the way that these stitches are fanned out, I think makes them look really like pansies. They're kind of got that real look of the actual flower. So I'm now going to do some more yellow around there, and the same way do some more yellow around there, and then on that section as well, and that will be that flower. So that is the satin stitch of the pansy. I'm now going to do the little bird, and he is a mixture of black and brown and cream. So his feet are black, his legs are brown, his head is black, and the rest of him is brown. So the body is stitched in brown. So we're going to outline the black bits first. I'm going to do his feet and his head with a bit of satin stitch here. Then we're doing straight stitch to fill in the body, and then I will put in these cream stitches first so that I can see where I'm putting them, and then I'll fill in with brown around the edges, and then we'll do the little satin stitch flower. So it's a mixture of satin stitch and back stitch around the head, back stitch where it's a thin line, and then where we get into shape we'll do some satin stitch. So I've back stitched all around the shapes, and now I'm going to satin stitch his beak, ending all my stitches at the point of the beak and kind of going over using the back stitch as an outline. And then I've done a couple of stitches to widen this line up where his eye is going to be, because I'm going to stitch a bit of a cream stitch to be his eye, and I want that to be surrounded by black. So I've done some extra stitches there, and now I'm going to go through and fill in with cream, but not before I have stitched his feet. Again, just back stitch, straight stitch, however you want to fill in these feet. They are not big, so it will just take a few stitches. I'm doing back stitch on mine, and I will just double up to get a bit of thickness in that bit, but that's about done it. And that covers his feet. Just one little stitch here. So now I've got my ecru, 3 strands of ecru, and the first thing I'm going to do is stitch a little eye. So just one tiny stitch in between that black that I've already put there. That's his eye, and then I'm going to fill the rest of the bits. Oh, I've done that wrong. I think that's meant to be filled with black. I haven't done enough black on mine, so I will go back and do that later. I might actually add another stitch just to make his eye stand out. I mean, when I say I've done it wrong, you can't really do it wrong. Just do it however you want to do it. But we're going to use straight stitch to fill in these bits. So just random stitches, up and down, treat them like bricklaying, layer them up, however you want to do it. So just do exactly the same thing in the top bit and on the chest. What I'm going to do now is stitch in my cream lines so that then I know what I'm going round with my brown. So this is just some definition on the wings. So we're just doing back stitch for this with 3 strands, just going over the grey lines that you can see printed, and then you'll be stitching your straight stitches around these cream lines. You can add some in if you want, you can do more. You could add some different colours in if you've got different colours, and do a bit of thread painting on his feathers and kind of blend in some different browns. Maybe one strand of this brown would look quite nice blended in. Or some mustard. Or even the gold, actually, the paler gold that we used on the flower would look nice. So I'm just going to carry on stitching my back stitch all along these grey lines. Now I am going in with the brown, and I've got 3 strands on my needle. I'm going to edge it in back stitch, and then I'll go in and fill with straight stitch. So I'm just trying to make my stitches as random as possible and not lined up. Some small, some long, and I'm just filling, so I'm jumping around to try and get that random feel. And just like satin stitch, we can layer these stitches up. So just keep coming back to it and adding more. And you can see that I'm going around the cream, so that's going to keep, it's going to still be visible. Just take your time with this one. I think each little thing, each little motif is just a lovely thing to get absorbed in. Just take your time, even with the tiniest little piece, and layer up those stitches. This one is going to look really good with lots of time, lots of slow stitching, lots of layers of stitching. It's not a quick one. So I think you get the idea of the bird. So I think you get the idea of the bird there and how we're stitching him. We're going to do very simple satin stitch flower, tiny little few stitches. You could do a French knot if you wanted to, but just do a few little satin stitches if that's not your thing. Stitch each petal separately so that you've got that distinction. I'll show you that bit actually, but see, I'm just going to carry on going round. See, there's still quite a few gaps where I can see my fabric, so I need loads more stitches, and then stitches in between the cream lines to make up his wing, and then ecru in the body. So Just some very satisfying satin stitch for the little flower that he's holding. Going to be so practiced at satin stitch at the end of this project. There's my little pink flower. See, I could keep going around that and make that look so much better. I think the key with satin stitch is just keep going, keep adding more stitches, and it's just going to look better and better. So I'm going to add a little circle of yellow in there, but that's the bird and the flower.